Most veterans think if they don't have medical records or they never went to sick call, they simply just have no shot of getting VA disability claims approved. But that's not true at all. There's a category of conditions where the VA actually does the hard part for you. They assume your condition was caused by your service. No nexus letter, no digging through old records other than to find proof that you were in the area or you meet the presumptive condition criteria, and there's no trying to prove something from 10 to 15 years ago. And the crazy part, a lot of GWOT veterans either don't know these exist or they're filing claims the hard way when they don't have to. In this video, I'm going to break down 5 presumptive conditions that I think could make your claim a whole lot easier to win, and one of them might apply to you right now. So first, what is a presumptive condition? It's essentially a condition that the VA considers or assumes that you meet service connection based on criteria such as like a location where you were deployed, or maybe some sort of exposure to maybe noise, or some sort of like burn pits, something like that. So it's essentially an easier way. It's probably one of the easiest claims to get approved because the law says if you meet this criteria, and it's this this condition that you're diagnosed for, then you're good to go. The in-service event is just simply meeting whatever the criteria is. And in the purposes of this video, or for GWOT vets, it's essentially being deployed to certain locations over in the Middle East during a certain time period, which is a very long time period. So a lot of veterans qualify for this. Again, I'm going to say that this can be one of the easiest ways to win a claim. And it blows my mind when I talk to vets that were deployed, during the time frame that I was in, and they just don't know about this. And this is about, getting VA benefits to support you to be able to go to the doctor, essentially for free, because of something that you did while you were in service. And so I think it's very important that if you're a GWOT vet, that you look into this. And I'll make sure that I link to the criteria so that you can find it on the VA's website. All right, so who does this apply to? It's essentially anybody that that served during this time period, and deployed to various locations: Iraq, Afghanistan, a lot of places in Southwest Asia, and certain surrounding regions. I will link to this in the description down below. Check it out, or just simply Google like GWOT VA presumptive condition criteria and see if any of those spots were places that you served, and see if any of these conditions I'm going to talk about today, or any of the other conditions that are on the list, qualify for you. I will also put a link, if I remember, on this slide to a video that I did basically going over the website that I want you to look at so that you can kind of see it for yourself. Okay, condition number 1 is asthma. This one is presumptive for a lot of GWOT vets. Even if like you got diagnosed with asthma, way later on in service, or after service, 10, 15 years later, if you meet the criteria for presumptive claim, you had deployments to those locations during those time periods, your asthma could be service connected very easily. And I think it would be crazy not to apply for this if you qualify. Some obvious symptoms of of asthma: shortness of breath, wheezing, chest tightness. You do go to to get diagnosed for this, that you do a breathing test, and they can diagnose you pretty easily with that breathing test. So just keep these are you may not even know you have asthma until you start looking into this. Condition number 2 is chronic sinusitis. I actually did a really good video on this, or at least I think it was good. I tried to throw in a lot of things that I knew about this, and I'll link that here as well. But some symptoms of chronic sinusitis is just constant congestion, sinus pressure, headaches. There's a whole bunch of symptoms for it. Again, if you're dealing with sinusitis and you've never dealt with it before, and you've been out for 10 to 15 years, but you were deployed over there, this is a condition that's presumptive, and it can be a high value claim. I mean, I think it starts at 0, goes to 10, 30, and I think all the way up to 50% based on the criteria. I encourage you, if you have this or you think you have sinusitis, this is a condition you may not have even went to the doctor for, so you may not have a current diagnosis. But if you have these symptoms, it's worth getting checked out to see if you do have these issues. And if it's a presumptive claim and you qualify for, you should certainly get the benefits. There's a lot of meds that cost money for treatment on this, and if it's service connected, that could take a burden off of you for the price of medicine. Condition number 3 is chronic rhinitis. This one's probably overlooked by a lot of vets, but it's essentially runny nose could be a symptom, nasal inflammation, obstruction, and this one can be a high value claim in terms of like rating criteria, but it can also be a 0%, right? Like the rating criteria in 38 CFR, it shows, I think 0% is like that you have it diagnosed. 10% I want to say is like no polyps, but I think like blockage at 50%. But then if you have polyps, and you wouldn't even know if you have polyps unless you went to an ENT and they checked. But yeah, the polyps, I believe, get you up to 30% on this. And this, this condition can be a pain in the butt. So if you have it, you may not even have a diagnosis. You may not even realize it. But if if you constantly have a runny nose, or you have a stuffy nose, or even like, you have a hard time like breathing through your nose, you could have rhinitis and not even realize it. The next one is chronic bronchitis. I don't know a lot about this one, but essentially persistent cough, mucus buildup, and then, difficulty breathing. If you have this condition and you were deployed and you meet the presumptive criteria, you should definitely consider filing a claim for this one to, probably most importantly, to make sure that you have VA medical coverage to take care of the symptoms and treatment for this. And the last one is undiagnosed illness, or Gulf War syndrome. There's a lot of symptoms in this one, and it's kind of a weird one, but chronic fatigue, joint pain, memory issues, GI problems. Hill and Ponton does a good video on this one. They spell it out pretty well. If I can find a link to their video, I'll put it on here. But if not, maybe just search Hill and Ponton and Gulf War syndrome. It's a good video, and they explain it pretty well. So I'm making this video because, like I said in the beginning, a lot of vets miss out on presumptive claims, especially on the PACT Act. They just simply maybe just don't know, or they don't think they have proof. But if you have any of these conditions, or you think you have them, and you start going to the doctor for treatment, if you get the diagnosis, and I'll talk about that next in the next slide, but presumptive claims essentially remove the need for you to have a whole bunch of proof that this was connected in service. If you can just show that it was connected, or that you were in those locations during that time, and you have your current diagnosis, then you will essentially win that claim. And this is really that essentially this is what you need. You need that current diagnosis for whatever that condition is. So if you have it, great. If you don't have it, but you have symptoms and you want to see if you have it, go talk to a doctor. See what the doctor says. If they diagnose you with one of these conditions, then you have the current diagnosis, and then you really only have to, look up the presumptive criteria by going on Google and typing in 38 CFR plus the condition that you have, and just look at what the rating criteria is, and just figure out, check off like 10%, 30%, 50%, figure out where you're at, and provide the right amount of evidence from your doctor to show the condition, or how severe your condition is, and what where you would be to provide the right evidence. And then I would suggest submitting a personal statement. I think a personal statement is a good way to let the VA know that you're you're claiming this as a presumptive claim. In fact, I would start my personal statement with, like, at the top, I would say I'm claiming, chronic rhinitis as a presumptive claim, and then go in to say that, like, you served during this time period at this location on this deployment. You've attached, a deployment order to prove that, and then start talking about, like, when your symptoms first started occurring, and what your symptoms are and how they impact your life. And then in that personal statement, it'll tell that story, and it'll make it a lot easier, in my opinion, for the VA rater to take a look at it. One big thing I throw out there, and because I've made this mistake on a lot of claims, is to make sure that you're providing evidence not only to prove service connection, because that's the easy part for this one, but also to make sure you get the appropriate rating. If you just talk about your rhinitis, but you don't talk about, if you talk about, like, how it impacts you, that's great, but that's not really part of the criteria for rhinitis. Rhinitis is actually, I think, like I said before, I think it's, polyps. Like, if you have polyps, you want your doctor to write you have polyps from, their evaluation of you. If you have blockage, you want to make sure that they provide, the proper, percentage of blockage. I think it's like, if you have up to 50 or a full blockage in one nostril, it's like, I don't know, 10%. If you have, or 30, I think, yeah, it's actually 10% if you have that. So you want to make sure that you're clear on that. So, be cognizant of that, just to make sure you get the right rating. Otherwise, you're appealing for increase, and, that just takes more time, and it's unnecessary. Listen, I put out a lot of videos. If you like this video, if it was helpful, just give me the thumbs up if you don't mind. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please feel free to do so. I like to put out a lot of information. I also have a website. It's free, informedveteran.com. I have a lot of plans for this. I'm a little bit slow at getting things going, but eventually I'd like to put a form on there where vets can provide information or ask questions. So go check that out. There's currently some information on there that might be helpful for you.